Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, and I am joined today by Don Pizzette. Don, how you doing?
I am doing great. We got an interesting show lined up today because of all the big announcements last week, but there is a ton of cybersecurity stuff going on, and hey, it's the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so a good time to focus in on some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, everyone's been saving their favorite hacks for this week, so that's fantastic. And we have Daniel Lowry in Witness Protection. Daniel, how you doing?
Yes, I will not be revealing my identity.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just introduced you.
Now I got to move again and change my name.
I did it again. Fantastic. All right, we are also joined by a special guest today. We're joined by LD Mangin, who is joining us all the way from New York City. How you doing today?
Doing very well, thank you, Peter. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, and you're. We were talking before we came on the show. You're in the beautiful Marriott Marquis. So conferences have started back up in New York. What are you there for?
Indeed, they have. You can see a bit of Times Square ads behind me. So I know it's a podcast, but there may be some video ads in the back as well. But yeah, no, I'm at a conference called Programmatic I/O. It's one of the leading conferences tied to the digital ad industry, and specifically what's called the programmatic part of the ad industry, which is all the automated buying and selling. So a lot of vendors, a lot of big media companies, a lot of big advertisers, all discussing the future of online ads.
Very cool, and it's good to see all that stuff back in full swing again. And now we know if we see an Elmo walk by, it is not the real Elmo. It is a Times Square Elmo. So.
True.
All right, well, let's get to know LD a little bit more in our first segment, which is, of course, rapid fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, LD, in this segment, what we're going to do is rapidly fire questions at you. You'll see a timer appear on your right. You'll have approximately 1 minute to answer each question. If you take too long, you'll get buzzed. And we'll move on to the next question. The first question is coming at you from Peter.
All right, so normally I start by kind of asking a little bit about your company, but I want to kind of take a step back first and learn a little bit more about the industry, because we're going to be talking about a term that I don't know that everyone knows. It's malvertising. I think you can kind of guess malware advertising, but can you kind of give us a little overview of what that's about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's exactly that. It's a portmanteau between malware and advertising, and it has to do with malicious activity that is delivered via ads. So basically, if I were to summarize, there's three large types of malicious activity. Either someone can actually deliver malware, i.e. an exploit, where they're going to hack the device, the computer, the phone, or the whatever it is. They're going to really attack the hardware. Or it could be phishing, where they're seeking to actually get engagement and interaction where they steal data. Or the final type is scams. And actually, that's the worst type these days. There's a ton of investment scams online where people pretend to be legitimate financial entities and institutions and con people into sending money. It's quite scary out there.
All right. Now, your company works in this space, and I assume it's not actually creating malvertising, but working against it. So what is it that you guys do to help protect us from that?
Yeah, so we both detect and resolve. So we, if you talk to security companies a lot, you'll often hear that they talk about prevention, detection, resolution, and then prevention. Those are kind of the three pillars of a good security company. Anyone who's doing security has to act on all three of those dimensions. But so what Confiant did is that we invented the digital ad ecosystem's first way to actually block individual bad ads in real time. So we're integrated into publishers' websites, and we monitor the ads as they load, and we're able to pinpoint when an individual ad is malicious for reasons that we detect and we determine, and we block it and we prevent it from loading. So that's how we help. We're there to verify and protect the user on behalf of the ad industry.
So is your software basically work on the user? Is that your target audience, or is it the advertisers, or is it the company that would be running advertisement? Where do you actually look for customers?
No, great question. So we made a strategic choice to start with the publishers first, so the owners of the media properties. And then from there, we've been building deeper upstream into the industry. And so we chose the publishers because they're the ones who are who care the most about the user. They're the one who has the user integration. They're the one that get blamed by the user when something bad happens. So we decided that they were the prime candidates to start this, and that we want to give them control first so that they could start creating awareness of this issue upstream. because it's like basically you got to take whoever cares about it the most and target them, and then they can get other people to care about it. And if we had started at the top stream, the buyers don't care as much. They know it's not their fault in the sense in that if there's another buyer who's bad, it doesn't matter.
So we talk a lot about end user security awareness for things like email phishing and the things that people can look out for, the link or the way things are written or the email address something's coming from. Are there the same kind of things that an end user can look out for rather than just not clicking an ad ever again, which I know is an option as well?
It's that is an option. Ad blockers are an option, but obviously that breaks the back and forth mechanic and exchange of, hey, we get the ad industry, the media companies give free content, and in exchange for that content they get interaction that they can sell ads for. So it's very important that the industry actually figure this problem out. Otherwise, ad blocking will continue because the users do care about this. They do want to protect themselves. So what, from point of view of what an individual can do, I would say biggest one, if you see a celebrity endorsement, don't run away. Do not click. Celebrities do not typically endorse investment opportunities. If you see one being endorsed, do not believe it. It is fake. It is a fraud.
Shaquille O'Neal will not like to hear that.
Yeah, he endorses everything now. He if it's Peyton Manning or Shaquille O'Neal, it's probably real. All right, so we're going to talk actually about that in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you one more question first. So you actually started your career path in like the financial services sector. How did you switch gears? What made you make that move over to the technology side?
Yeah, no. So I got lucky. I dropped out of school, was studying economics, dropped out, and came to New York and was working on Wall Street. And I got to have a front row seat to the dot-com crash. And so seeing both the creation of all those companies and all the different problems that they were trying to solve, and then seeing the death of them when most of them crashed, really gave me an insight to saying, hey, wait a second, there's really something to this technology in terms of how all this technology is revolutionizing industries and just changing the way they do their work. And so let's go look for problems there. So I actually went back to school, learned computer science, and done sales and business development ever since.
Makes a lot of sense. Luckily, you weren't too deep into it at that point when the bust happened. All right. Well, we've alluded a couple times to some of the kind of financial investments being one of the big ads to worry about, and we've actually got a story we want to look at here in our next segment with you, LD, which is Behind Bars.
The law and you'll go to jail.
All right, this one comes to us from nltimes.nl over in the Netherlands. So online scam using fake ads with Dutch celebs netted millions, and an Amsterdam man is held. So is this that same kind of ad? So is this someone going out and actually paying for an ad? So whatever ad platform it is actually still getting that revenue?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, everyone's getting paid here. And that's what makes this complicated, because it's about weeding out who are the good people versus the bad people, and realizing that even the bad people will pretend to be good and their money is still green. So yes, this is exactly the example I was talking about in terms of being careful about celebrity endorsed issues. And so what these bad actors are doing, the people doing these type of fraudulent investment scams, they'll start off with an ad that is pure clickbait. So it'll be like a Boris Becker, but like Photoshopped to look like he's been beaten up. And then you're like, oh my God, who would beat up Boris Becker? I need to click this. These ads often get 5% plus click-through rate. That's really big. When you think of how many the average ad usually does, it's like if an ad for a large brand gets anywhere past like 0.5%, that is amazing. Most ads get like 0.1, if not 0.05% click-through rate. So anyways, they use a clickbait ad. It then brings you to a fake article where instead of actually talking about why Boris Becker got beaten up, it talks about how Boris Becker turned around his life and his finances by this new investment opportunity that he's endorsing and thinks is really good, and he thinks you should go look at it too. And that article will be made to look like a local newspaper, logo, type font, everything matched. Then if you're still interested, you then click through to a call to action page where they will see to catch your information, either in terms of getting your information so that they can start calling you to incentivize you to invest, or they may actually even try to get money right away from you. And then you're hooked. And then they play on confirmation bias. They play on all they have a lot of psychological hacks and tricks that they deploy to keep you putting more money. The UK did an analysis on this last year. They estimated that UK citizens lost upwards of $180 million to these types of scams. The Australia was like 265, something like that. So these are non-trivial amounts being stolen. The average person who falls for these is losing about $60,000. And you'll hear, if you Google it, this Netherlands story is great because this is actually where someone got caught and got arrested. Most of the stories you read are just where someone lost their life savings, and this is not grandma who's falling for this. There's a story about on the BBC, a gentleman in the UK who was the CEO of the owner of a small chain of stores, had a 50-person business, lost $500,000 because again they know how to play technically, psychologically, and they're able to play off of that to make people get calm.
I'm having a hard time kind of wrapping my head around this because I think about the normal type of virus or malware that we look for. Hey, I got an email with a weird attachment on it, or here's a Word document that has macros. Here's something from Russia, right? So there's like things that we normally look for, but here you're just talking about an ad, and an ad is usually just a picture, and it's the content that has the red flags. I really don't have any idea of how you would programmatically identify that. And I don't want you to like reveal your intellectual property or your secret sauce, but how do you do that?
No, it's so great question. Our starting assumption is that if anyone hides from us, there's something there. Because we're specialized. We are just looking for malware, malicious activity within ads itself. So we have a very defined perimeter in terms of, hey, these are all good ads behave these ways technically. And the minute that there starts being variation to that technicalities, it starts leading a trail of crumbs that we follow to eventually get to attribution to a bad actor. So that starting premise of if you hide from us, there's something wrong here is an actually very strong principle to act upon from a point of a security process. And so these actors know that what they're doing is bad, and they know that if they don't hide it, it can get caught even easier because we can start doing keyword matching, we can start doing image matching, we can start doing a ton of very basic technical things. But the hard stuff is actually figuring out the cloaking actually. So these ads are very often cloaked so that they will only show to a specific target user or group of target users, and that's where the bad actors actually leverage the strength of the ad industry against the user. Ads are able to be targeted, they're able to be honed in and be precise. And so the bad actors use that to hide. And that's what we have to reverse engineer to figure out.
Now, there's a number of advertising platforms that are out there. The two biggest are Google AdSense and the Facebook advertising, right? That, like, if you want an ad to be successful, those are the two, it's not a monopoly, right? So whatever it is, but
Right,
those are
there's
kind of
two
the
of
two
them.
places. Yeah. So
biopoly.
is that where these advertisements are being sent through, or other platforms?
Unfortunately, with these investment scams, the answer is yes. But that's relatively new. So the malvertising has gone through 3 waves over the past 10 years since it got invented. Well, 14 years since it got invented. The first wave was very exploit driven, very much the malware that was infecting the device. And that stopped when the industry removed flash ads as the main technical mechanism they were doing ads, which is a great thing. Made everyone a lot happier, a lot more protected. The bad actors then shifted to using JavaScript-based attacks that would trigger forceful redirects and would automatically redirect the person, typically to a phishing questionnaire, a phishing scam where you want a free Amazon gift card. I'm sure that was kind of the main attack for years. And then over the past 2 years, they've started drifting to these cloaking-based investment scam attacks. And so typically every time there's an evolution from an attack vector perspective, in terms of the mechanism they use to attack, there's also an evolution from an attack payload perspective in terms of where they're making their money. Because what's really interesting about malvertising is that the technical threat actors that actually compromise the industry, that know how to get through the pipes and know how to use those pipes to get in front of people, those aren't the people running the actual payloads. They're getting paid. The technical actors, the true hackers, the technically sophisticated people, they're there to create a pathway that then another malicious party is going to pay to use and bring their payload to them. So the bad actors do this. They break up and build these multiple tiered ecosystems in part so they can protect themselves. Because when you're not the first party doing the attack itself, when you're facilitating it, there's less risk. If you're not the first one that's going to get arrested, they're going to go and arrest the person doing the payload. That gentleman in Amsterdam who was running these scam ads, he wasn't the one that was technically hacking the industry. He was presenting it in a dark web portal somewhere, saying, "Hey, if you can get this ad in front of this type of people, I will pay you these types of fees."
Sure.
And so it's this other ad ecosystem that's there to allow bad actors to advertise.
Yeah.
And that's the magic thing of all this, that everyone uses ads.
Exactly.
Good people, bad people, everyone uses ads.
Yeah, and I looked up some of these names here. I'd not heard of Geert Wilders.
That's the one that got me.
But Ali B is my favorite.
So I got
Was one of the
popped,
Dutch celebrities that they use. I'm like, Ali G. You mean no, Ali B.
Ali B.
Is a Dutch rapper. So
And these are every country has their own type.
that's true.
Listen, all I know,
every country's got their own celebrity.
I see an ad with Gertz in it, I'm clicking. That's what's up.
Right?
All right,
Hey,
so
I mean, who would beat up Boris Becker?
Right.
I'm still wondering what happened.
yeah, I got to dig into that after this too.
Is there a GoFundMe? Or?
My afternoon is going to be pretty busy. All right, so before we let you go, I know you guys are launching a new website soon. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've had a lot of fun with this. We've been rebranding it, and it's a lot of this is also to represent the growth of the business, where we've been aiming to, where we've really locked in and mastered malvertising inside of the ad industry. And so we're now positioning ourselves to be able to bring the information we generate, the threat intelligence as it's called, and act on it outside the industry. And so it was a good time to look back at our branding, look back at our positioning, and really up our game. And so we've had a lot of fun with it. We've made a little malvertising monsters, and there's some fun art and some fun style to it.
Yes.
But another piece, we actually launched the first piece of it just last week, which is a matrix that specifically is there to map all of the bad actions and all the bad actors. So you can, if you take a matrix.confiant.com, you'll get a taste of what the new site is going to look like.
Yeah, so the new site will be at confiant.com, and you mentioned the Matrix. That's really cool. I checked that out. It's pretty interactive and lets you see all the different attack vectors that you have to worry about. So if you're new to malvertising and want to learn more, that is a great place to start, and that's where I learned quite a bit. So, well, I want to thank you for taking the time, LD. I know, like we said, you're at a conference, certainly busy, but appreciate you taking some time and joining us today.
Absolutely. No, thank you all, gentlemen, very much for having me on the show.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about a lot of that cybersecurity news that Don was alluding to. That's coming up right after this on Technado with Don Pizzette.
I've been in the career education business since 2000.
I wanted to get into computers, and I'd kind of been doing it as a hobby for a few years at that point.
But what we found when we were running the career school was about 1 out of every 100 people that we talked to might enroll.
You had books and you had official courses, but if you had a question, you had nobody you could go to. Nobody.
But what could we do for the other 99? There's 99 people out of 100 who can't afford it.
Once I was A+ certified, it was easy to find jobs. There were lots of jobs that had that as a requirement.
One day I came to Don and I said, I've got an idea. What if we could remove the obstacles for people?
We said, how do we create a product that is valuable to people?
Reduce cost and make it fun.
I want to make resources available to people that they can learn about IT.
Having an option that you can attend anytime.
Learn about certifications, get certified,
On demand,
and get into the job they want.
where every day there is new content being produced.
When something new comes out, we record that content.
It's the best of the classroom experience delivered conveniently online. A library of IT knowledge that's waiting for you.
Hello, thank you for watching IT Pro TV, helping you learn everywhere you go.
We started IT Pro TV to create the training that we wanted, that we wish that we would have had. The style and approach that we felt would truly help people learn IT and succeed.
That's what I want to do. I want to make life easier for people who want an IT career.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette. Thank you so much to LD from Confiant for joining us. I'd never really heard of malvertising. I've seen a lot of those ads, I think, where you know that, well, that's clickbait, but I didn't realize that they were scams, too, and actually coming after my money.
They want it.
Straight from Google.
Straight from Google. Yeah.
Does Google count as a malvertiser?
Well, I mean, you have that button. You have that button to report the ad, and I think
yeah, we are doing that. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, that's a great ad. Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
Man, worked well.
We'll make sure to only keep our profit on that and not pay the advertiser. Thanks for reporting.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Well, we have, as Don mentioned, I think every single article is cybersecurity related. So we're not even going to play who got pwned or anything because they're all everybody got pwned.
Yeah.
We all did this week.
We all got pwned this week. Yeah.
And
you got pwned too. Dang.
Yeah, I got pwned a few times. All right, our first one comes to us from bitdefender.com. Digitally signed rootkits are back. A look at FiveSys and Companion. So
time.
Digitally signed rootkits, these are the ones where it's kind of gone through a check and they said, this one's good.
So, rootkits in general are a type of virus that gets installed on your computer and finds a way to interact directly with your operating system's kernel. So it runs underneath all of the other software. Usually it's invisible to antivirus software and invisible to things like your task manager, your process list. It won't show up because it's telling the kernel to hide it. So this is bad stuff. Well, we've had a lot of really cool security features come out over the last 10 years, things like secure boot and secure memory and so on, that stop rootkits from functioning. However, if you can somehow manage to get a rootkit digitally signed by Microsoft, for example, all of a sudden the operating system trusts it and it works again. And sadly, that's exactly what happened here. So they found a rootkit in the wild that was digitally signed by Microsoft. Somehow, these malicious actors got it submitted through Microsoft's hardware checks and got it digitally signed as a driver of some sort. And then it was propagated mostly throughout China. This one actually targeted gamers. So it was looking to lift things like credentials and payment data and so on from people who are participating in online gaming. But it does show that this threat that we kind of thought was solved is right back again.
Yeah, and this is not a news site, right? This is the blog of the people that found it, I believe, because there's a white paper linked here, so we'll definitely put that link down in the YouTube description.
Yeah, and the white paper is really cool. If you ever wonder, because they list every IP address that it talks to, they have hashes of the executable, they talk about how it works. So if you want to learn more about how these rootkits function, it's a really good white paper to read.
Yeah, I've seen definitely, because I'm always trying to create stuff for the show to show some sort of malware that's I can control, and it's things like that. I can create a program and it'll go, oh, that's not digitally signed by Microsoft, so this is not going to happen.
Yep.
And it's like, but you can basically kind of set up a company, says we're a development shop, we submit for, hey, I need to get a digital signature so I can sign my code so that it will be acceptable by your operating system. And if you walk through that process, then you can use that. That's one way of getting it.
Yeah, and they find ways to obfuscate the malicious side of it in the source code. And if they're good enough to be able to trick Microsoft's monitors, the people that review this stuff, or really it's mostly automated these days, but if they can trick it and get past that, bingo.
I've seen people pull it out of like current DLLs, like where they're able to reverse engineer a DLL that's already been signed and get the digital signature out of it, or reuse the
kind of attach that then to there.
So you kind of inject it into something that's already been signed.
That would be tough. Like it would have to be a compromise.
Apparently not for really smart people.
Because they basically have to do a collision attack, right?
I don't know exactly how they do it, honestly, but it didn't seem too difficult, honestly.
Yeah, because I thought you'd kind of submit something and then it's something legit and that gets approved and then you kind of slip the other code in. But
you're saying one way.
You're saying you kind of hide the code in it, Don. So Microsoft gets all that. They just don't see the obfuscated portion of it.
Yeah, there's a few ways to do it. Or Ben Fink, we did the webinar with Ben a few weeks ago, and he was showing how he could take a signed PowerShell script and have it reach out to the internet to grab the bad stuff. Yep. And so the script itself didn't do anything bad, but it would reach out to a site and
that stuff do all sorts of bad stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because it's coming from the internet, and that's bad.
So,
any action items that we need to
don't trust the internet
at this point? I mean,
so the neat thing here is that once this was detected, now keep in mind it had been out in the wild for about a year before it was detected. But once it was detected, Microsoft was able to revoke that certificate, and so now it does not work anymore. So this is really a Microsoft problem. They're working on it, but for everyone else, it's more of an awareness thing. Just be aware that we put a lot of trust on our operating system, and this is why you'll hear me from time to time say, like, I don't like to run brand new Linux distros. I usually stick with Ubuntu or Red Hat, and it's because I know that they've done a lot of diligence for security and maintenance of their libraries, and their package repos are fairly secure. But when you start looking at Bob's Fancy Linux. Yeah, it might have a great UI, but how much security effort are they putting in?
Just because I haven't fiddled around with it in a while, but I think of things like virtual desktops. You know how you have almost like a thin client. It boots up. You get almost like a remote desktop connection to your line of business apps and everything. It looks just like a Windows terminal.
Yeah.
You get infected or whatever, you just reboot, you get a brand new one, everything's blown away. Are we getting to where speeds on things like USB or internal storage is fast enough for us to be able to work in some sort of virtual environment 24/7 to where I just reboot, and if I ever need to add something to the image, I could modify it, add the line of business application, and then have some sort of persistence with that?
I would say technically yes. If you my computer at home, so I'm running Windows 11, and I have WSL2 installed, so the Windows subsystem for Linux 2, which requires Hyper-V. And the moment you install Hyper-V, you reboot. Now your entire OS is running on top of the hypervisor. So technically, you are in a virtualized environment, even though you're on bare metal.
So there you go.
So yeah, I think we're at that point.
Yeah, could be one way to circumvent this problem.
We'll see more technologies come out to help protect it. But
I hope
where we are now.
I hope so.
I hope so.
All right, our next article
will be.
Our next article comes to us from therecord.media, and this is a day where I really wish we still had our guest on from a few weeks ago, Ramesh Ketanapali from Digital Trust Networks, because this is kind of right up that alley. Hacker steals government ID database for Argentina's entire population.
Again?
I know, oops, where did I put that database? So is this, when we say government ID, like basically kind of like the driver's license or passport files that we would have here?
Yeah, basically. So this is a centralized database in Argentina that has all the information on a person. So it has things like your photo from your driver's license or passport, your date of birth, your address. We have social security numbers in the U.S. They have it's a Termite number or something like that. I can't remember what they call theirs, but basically a social security number.
Gotcha.
And all of this stuff was in this database. Well, it turned out that there was a hacker on the dark web alleging to sell service to look up the data on any Argentinian citizen. Said, hey, if you pay me X amount of dollars, I'll get you all the data and a photo of that citizen. And people were buying it. Well, people started asking the Argentinian government, hey, have you had a breach? And they said no. Well, so then the hacker posted, I think it was 4 or 5 people's information on Twitter. And so then people went back to the Argentinian government and said, well, if you haven't had a breach, how did he just do this? So they went and they said, oh, we actually see where an employee's credentials were used to log into a VPN and access the system. And we see those lookups right at that same time. They just looked up that data. And the hacker has come back and said, no, I got the whole database. I got the whole thing, and I got it on the dark web. You can shut off the VPN now. It's fine.
Yeah. But even if they
pick someone.
Even if they didn't, that tells you you've got an inside actor that has access, that's doing things they shouldn't with it.
So one of I think it was actually the Record that got in contact with the hacker, and he said that it was just lazy employees. It compromised employee credentials that let him get into the system. They must not have been using multi-factor authentication, or he must have found a way to get around that to VPN in and just log right into the system, scrape the whole database, and now everyone who's an Argentinian citizen has had their identity stolen.
So it's like the OPM hack, except for against everybody.
Yeah, that's everybody, not just people who applied.
Not just the government. Yeah,
it's everybody.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Feels good to be an Argentinian right now, I'm sure.
And that's the risk of having a centralized identity database like that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting approach that the hacker took of not saying, I'm going to go sell this database on the dark web, but no, I'm going to sell this service of background checks, basically, for whoever you need.
The yellow pages for anybody you want.
Yep.
Yeah. Why sell it once when you can sell it over?
Oh, he'll sell the whole database too, and it's a digital asset. He'll sell it multiple times, and he'll make some money on it. Well, I say he could be a woman. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah.
But
yeah, well, a population of 45 million at risk there. So
wow.
Not sure what the lesson is, because you have to tell the government that stuff.
Yeah.
But
government do better.
Don't tell the government your birthday. That's what it is, because they'll put it out there. All right, our next one comes to us from Vice.com. This is one I've been seeing a lot of articles about. Yeah, Sinclair workers say TV channels are in pandemonium after a ransomware attack. And Sinclair is one of those companies that owns a multitude of local television stations. So the news you get from your local NBC or CBS, those kind of places. And they were the TV stations were offline in terms of their news and stuff for a little while.
I believe Sinclair is the largest owner of network affiliates throughout the United States. So they own a lot of television channels. When this first broke, so I followed it from the technology standpoint. It's a ransomware attack. We all know how those work. We hear about one every week, so that's not really special. What I thought was special here, though, was many of the local locations. So they were all connected via a VPN or a secured network. But once you're in on one, you can cross that secured network to the other. So it highlighted a design flaw. So design flaw number one was that they didn't segment their network very well. So a TV station in Tampa, Florida shouldn't be able to talk to his TV station in Los Angeles, California. But in the Sinclair network, you could. Even there, though, it didn't necessarily matter because the original compromise happened at Sinclair, like at the main location. So it just spread out. And for the local networks, they got shut down. Now, in Sinclair's defense, they actually had a neat backup system in place where they could flip to their national feed. So their channels didn't go off the air, right? So the channels still had content. You could turn it on. You could still watch, I don't know, whatever lame sitcoms are on these days. And so that worked. But you wouldn't see local commercials. You wouldn't see local sporting events. And that's how the local channels make their money. That's how they stay in business. And for many of them, it took days. Even some of them are still down today.
That sounds a lot like I used to do free-to-air satellite dish television, and that's what would happen. You could be watching some local affiliate, and when it went to commercials, you would just see like the anchor shuffling their papers and staring at other things because you weren't seeing the commercial part of it. Yep,
and the locals, they would pick that up on satellite, right? And then they would just drop their commercials on top of it and air it, and that's how they make their money. And if the commercials don't air, they can't charge. You know, they have to do a credit back.
So people are loving their Sinclair service right now because they're not getting any advertisements.
I imagine they've just plugged in the national commercials. So it's
yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm surprised the hackers haven't plugged in their commercials.
Yeah.
Now they're double dipping.
Malvertisements right here.
Invest in us with Ali B.
Yeah.
Your favorite
comes
Dutch
Gertz
Moroccan
to tell you all
rapper.
about.
Yeah,
But this is another really high visibility ransomware attack.
Yeah.
And so it's just showing, I've made this comment on the podcast many times, that this is rampant criminal activity online that's just not being stopped.
And this was tied back, according to a Bloomberg report, to Evil Corp, which is someone we've heard about before. They believe based in Russia. So
it's like Gotham. The internet is now Gotham, right?
That's right.
It's just crime everywhere. Everyone's corrupt.
Yeah, we need a
Batman.
bat person to step in. Just waiting for some poor sap whose parents are dead to get out there and.
I think you need to usher this along. You need to find some kid walking in an alley with his parents.
Oh, I thought you meant like do something to my parents.
The betterment of the world, kid.
I thought Don was threatening my parents there for a second.
Yeah, no, I think you got to kill your parents if you're going to do this.
If you're gonna, wait, do I get to be a billionaire with a cave?
Now, if he doesn't,
absolutely.
Could he blame you?
Sorry, Mom.
Don told me to kill him.
Sorry, Dad.
The voices in my head.
Why did you use a hammer,
cool
son?
All right. Thank God they don't listen.
That's a good turn.
Yeah. All right, let's head over now to our next one over at Reuters.com. Exclusive. Governments turn tables on ransomware gang REvil by pushing it offline. They pushed it offline?
This is a really interesting story. So there have been a few headlines centered around the REvil group this last week. One of them was the fact that the FBI had actually hacked into REvil servers and retrieved their private key, allowing them to be able to decrypt anything that was encrypted with that malware. However, they held it for 19 days. They held it for almost 3 weeks because they were trying to see how far in they could get into the enemy network.
They were looking for that Bitcoin wallet.
More than likely.
That's what they were doing.
A couple of agents that are into technology.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, if you were a company that had all your data, like the pipeline, the Colonial Pipeline, they paid the ransom. Right. Meanwhile, the FBI is sitting there with the key and just saying, "Well, we're trying to really get in here." So that was a bit of an embarrassing spot for the FBI. But now we start to get to see some of the fruits of labor from that. REvil went offline back in, I believe it was in July. Just all of their sites disappeared. Right, and you could tell it was whoever was the main person was taking the money and running. They'd made enough money and they were gone. Well, their number 2 person stepped in and restored the servers from backup. So brought all new servers back up, and REvil popped back up online in August. Well, unbeknownst to the attacker, when the FBI had gotten in before, they actually got access to the backups and they compromised the backups as well. So
They were already in.
So when they restored the backups, the FBI was back into the servers
That's
again.
a good trick right there.
Yep. So they harvested as much information as they could and then pushed the whole thing offline against REvil is offline once more. There's several governments that are all involved in this. And let me just tell you, it gets disheartening sometimes reporting on all the security news. It's really great to see some actual activity happening here.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do we start to recognize that cyber warfare is not just nation state against nation state at this point? It's everybody, right? Everybody's affected by this, even when it is targeted against nation states. We feel the brunt of that, like the Colonial Pipeline had. What happened? We started having gas shortages. People were unable to fill their tanks. Prices went up. The end person feels that. And what's interesting is when, they contact them and they say, "Oh, this kind of got out of hand. We didn't expect it to really do all that.
This worked really well.
But you did this, and there's fallout beyond what your intention was, and we get it. You're a bad guy or whatever. You don't really care, because if you did, you'd have just been backing that up immediately.
Yeah.
But it has all these consequences, so everybody's involved in this. We all have to take our part into doing what we can to try to stop these things. And it's nice to see our government's finally doing something to make a play, to say we're not going to just be pushed around. We're going to come after you and we're going to get you.
And I have heard some people say, like, the real problem here is that if you're in Russia, the way their laws are written is that if they push out ransomware like this, as long as it doesn't hit Russian citizens, you're not breaking the law.
Yeah, that's bullcrap.
So it's okay. And there's been pressure applied to the government over there, but the government has said, hey, no, this isn't our fault that you don't do your updates or you don't run antivirus. Like, this isn't us.
And yet.
So there are people saying, well, hey, here in the U.S., maybe they should make a law saying that we're allowed to attack them. But the problem is all the innocents that get hit by this, right?
And it becomes a feedback loop of it never de-escalates anything.
Yeah.
It only escalates. Yeah. So we have to do... Like, on one hand, they have a point. If you're not doing your updates, you're not doing basic security practices, try to keep yourself safe, then you are inviting these things to happen. But that doesn't mean that they should just be allowed to go and do that either, right? And if that does happen, then sanctions should occur, and we should be, at least our government should be trying to defend us in a way. And if that means hacking back, because, correct me if I'm wrong, REvil has no official ties to the government of Russia.
Right.
They're just a hacking group. So piss on them, we'll do what we want. And if you don't like it, make some laws to make it stop.
I'm sure they're paying their taxes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Over there.
Absolutely.
So does this lead them any closer, do you think, to identifying individuals, or
it wouldn't matter? In the past, they have identified. Like, remember there was like a captain in the Russian army they identified. They had pictures and everything, but they couldn't do anything unless those people came to the U.S.
Right,
if they land in an extradition country, though, we could get them, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Like if they were on a plane or something.
But not in Russia.
Not in Russia.
or within like 200 miles of one of those Reaper drones?
Yeah.
All right. That's nuts. All right. Our next article comes to us from CBSNews.com. Operation DarkHunTOR, which is spelled Tor, like the Tor browser. Worldwide sting of dark web nets 150 suspects. So this was you were talking about coordinated with a lot of countries. This is the same kind of thing here, where a lot of countries got together and rounded up a lot of people at the very same time. Yeah, that's great. The first half of today we were talking about all the ways that we've been breached. Now we're talking about all the people getting caught. So that's nice. And a lot of this was in the U.S. So what were these people caught doing here, Don?
So this is another example of kind of like the Silk Road. That once the Silk Road was shut down, any number of dark web markets launched, and so they have been running, for the last decade, selling drugs, human trafficking, weapons, you name it. Argentinian databases.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. Ransomware as a service. REvil, they offer their service up on the dark web. So these markets are basically just a whole area of criminal activity. So what will happen is these agencies will team together, and they have to find ways to de-anonymize the people that are active on the dark web. So what they're hoping to do is to arrest somebody of another crime and then find their laptop, have a warrant to open and use their laptop, and then connect up to the dark web. Now they've identified one person, they have access to the site, and they can start to work on identifying other people. They've busted child pornography rings this way.
Awesome.
In this case, it was mostly guns and drugs on this one, but it was largely instigated by the German government, but over half the people arrested were right here in the United States. So it's easy for us to point the finger at Russia and say, you guys have these criminal gangs over there, they're doing ransomware everywhere.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we've got a bunch of people selling drugs and child porn. So
At least we're not saying, well, as long as you're doing child porn in Russia,
Exactly.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we find out you're doing, that stuff, we're going to get you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if
this kind of goes back to on what you were saying of maybe finding something and then being able to roll it up, because it says German police in January closed down something called dark market online, and maybe then they use that to kind of go back and find all these people. But yeah, like you said, 65 in the U.S., 47 in Germany, 24 in Britain, and 4 each in Italy and the Netherlands, among others. So
there's a huge push right now for people to have end-to-end encryption. And end-to-end encryption works. Like if I'm sending data to Daniel and we have end-to-end, only Daniel and I can see it. But if Daniel gets arrested, which is unlikely to happen, and they get a warrant for his laptop and they access his laptop, all of a sudden end-to-end encryption doesn't mean anything.
Right.
They have access.
Decrypted.
we've got the end.
Or
Yeah.
you've got the keys to decrypt it because it's right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that's how these operations work.
Yeah,
That's why things like Unix and Tails are very popular, because there are these ephemeral devices and operating systems that, you can get everything you need, you get it off, and then you turn it off and it's gone. It's all gone.
well, glad that those ones are shut down, because there's probably a lot more data and things too on those computers that they haven't even gone through yet that will either lead to more arrests or other things that are
We can only hope
out there.
Yeah, amen to that.
All right, want to let you know about a great webinar that's coming up actually a little bit later today. It is our Halloween-themed webinar, Cybersecurity Incident Response for Small to Mid-Sized Businesses, Avoiding the Nightmare on Main Street. We're going to have some spooky fun on that one with Daniel and Rob Carson. Will be joining us for that one as well. Then we've got a webinar next week on a deep dive into Windows 365, Understanding Microsoft's Cloud PC. That's going to be with Mike Roderick, and we also have Vadim Vladimirsky, I think, from Nerdio, who will be joining us as well, and kind of, like we said, deep diving into Windows 365 and kind of seeing how that back end works and all that. So that'll be a fantastic one to check out. Also, go ahead and head over to Technado.com, where you can see all of our latest episodes. You can also click in the upper right-hand corner on the Sponsored by IT Pro TV button, and you can get a coupon code for 30% off for the lifetime of your IT Pro TV personal membership. You can also request a team trial as a business and see all the great features available there from IT Pro TV, so be sure to check that out. All right, want to thank LD from Confiant, and if you made it out of this week without being hacked, congratulations. Yeah, I don't know if Have I Been Pwned has been updated yet for all this week's fun, but if you're in Argentina, you have.
Yeah.
You have been pwned. All right,
Expected.
Don, Daniel, thank you both very much.
A pleasure as always, sir.
And we will see you all next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.